We now have, the phone just rang right before I got on this call, which is great. A decent number of clients considering Q3 and Q4 live, all outdoor. Very few of them are looking at inside yet. But the timeline, as you guys have, especially those who are in hotels and venues here, probably get like a 2-minute warning of I'm bringing an event to you right now. So everything is very last second, and I think that's going to stay for a while. The most we've seen for some more significant clients for booking is like 3 months at the moment. So which are, and those clients are normally 9 to 12 months out. So it's going to be a bit, I think 22 is going to be a great year for us. I think we all thought 21 was going to do it, but this has been a 2-year slugfest for sure. And we're all in the same boat. So I'm just going to go through really briefly some of the questions that we get asked. The biggest difference about production for live versus virtual, which is going to be the same for hybrid, is you just can't bring all the fun stuff. Like you can't bring flowers and linens, and not that AV is not fun. My husband will kill me for saying that because AV is also really fun. And our chief of design will also hate me for saying that. But the essence of an overall event gets shrunk into what a camera's looking at. So it's a little bit harder for what we do. And Corinne, I think I'm just going to take you home with me because the way you talked about, I was like, oh, you're fabulous the way you were describing me. Thank you for that lovely introduction. We are definitely a unique animal. Christopher started in a fully AV based business in 2008. I came from just planning clients and then added a floral studio and added furniture and added lighting. And when we got together, we kind of said we can become a one-stop for clients. So we do have speakers in one room and the flower shop in the other room, and then a furniture warehouse in another room, and we have a full event management and marketing department. So we are kind of a one-stop. I don't like using that word, but it's the best way to describe us. So when we say what's different about production live versus virtual or hybrid is we are used to bringing a giant truck to your venue and you asking us to do all those elements. And so that's one of the bigger things. I would also say lighting, I'm just looking at the sunshine right now. TV production is very different than live production. You only have to make the person speaking look really good. There's no audience to light and there's no content for audience to look at. So that's a major difference. Teleprompters, a lot of people don't use for not-for-profit organizations or some of our corporate events. For galas, people use confidence monitors instead. Almost everyone's transitioned to teleprompters because it hides the camera, which is terrible to look at for an hour. I don't even like looking at the little green dot right now. I keep staring at Corinne, which is fine. So that's another really big difference. And then you don't have sound, right? You don't have speakers in a space because I'm hearing it at home. I'm not hearing it in the room. So there's a lot of technical pieces. And I am the chief of design, and I suppose I can say, because my chief of staff is here, I'm also the boss right now running the business. I'm not technical at all. I'll give you vision till I'm blue in the face, and I will leave our tech department to explain to you all those pieces, but that's at least a good start to understand. This, I think, is the biggest difference, and it's going to become even more important when we go to more and more hybrid events. Is the timeline and run-up show any different? It's so different. First of all, it's shorter. How many Zoom calls are we on every day of our lives? 50 minutes to an hour is the max that we're suggesting people do these events. And I'm paraphrasing, the bulk of the clients that have been really true to virtual this year have been not-for-profit organizations, because for you to further your mission and also fundraise, it's impossible to skip a year. So we've been doing a ton of that work. And a lot of new clients have come our way because they're just like, how do I use my arms and what buttons? See, that's why we don't do backgrounds. We've done some corporate events, and there are a couple new platforms digitally that are coming out that are great for our general sessions and breakout rooms. But the timeline's shorter and the run of show is really specific. Whether this is good or not about our business, if you came to us for your gala or conference and you showed me your stick of slides 5 minutes before the show started, I could pop it in my computer and press go. Does not work the same way with a virtual event. We're going to take all of your digital content, any of the videos you've made in advance, have them in order, and we're going to oversaturate your content by about an hour and 20 minutes of pre-recorded stuff, because no matter how slow I try to talk right now, I'm normally a fast talker. When you're live on a camera, you're extra fast, so your time is even quicker than you think it is. So we want to build in extra moments for you guys, so that some people have had, we must end at the hour or we must end in the 45 minutes. In order for us to have that control, we over prepare with content. Okay, sponsorship opportunities. I think this is a really good thing. Like, everyone's now had enough time to breathe and understand that we're in this sort of we're not going anywhere yet. And there have been so many really great things that have come out of having to go virtual. I don't know about you. I want all the guests to look at the flowers that I designed on tables. I don't necessarily want them to look at their logos that are on a slideshow back behind them while they're getting their cocktails, because they're not paying attention really anyway. So virtual shoves them in one screen to stare at something for an hour or a half an hour if you have a pre-show, which has been really helpful. A lot of people like the fact environmentally we're saving program printing and things, and also budgetary wise, that helps a lot. So we have encouraged people to ask your biggest sponsors if you want, or if you've got enough time to ask all levels of your sponsors, make a video. It doesn't have to be professionally done. If you've got an iPhone, have the CEO say thanks, or an executive director say thank you, send it in. So they have a personal touch to be able to connect to your audience. You can have some, we work with a lot of banks. They have commercials already. They send us that video, we pop that in. So there hasn't really been a loss here. I actually think there's been a gain for sponsorship opportunities. Corinne, how do you like say, Kate, stop, because somebody has a question? Because if you do, I'm just gonna go, and you tell me when to.
I'll just jump in here.
Just right now? Or are you doing
no?
it?
Okay. No, we're good. No questions yet.
Okay.
You're on a roll.
Okay.
Definitely sponsorship has changed vastly, right. And I think we're all trying to deal with that at the moment. And any creative opportunities that you have to share, or ideas that we can circle back to during Q&A.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
Yeah.
This is another really huge silver lining, I think, because I might have lived in the state of New Hampshire and want to support your cause, and then I have to go move to a job in Texas and I can't come back to a gala, but now I can. So all of a sudden you can expand your audience basically exponentially. And it has posed, interestingly enough, some budgetary concerns, because what do you charge for someone who's not there? And what are you expecting to get if it's for fundraising? What are you expecting to get for dollars for sort of your key guys aren't in the room this time? You might have new people who might give you at a lower dollar. So it's almost like an annual fund concept for a development officer versus a major gift. I spent 2 years at the University of New Hampshire in between wedding planning because I wanted a break from 600 weddings in 10 years before I jumped in with Chris. So I worked as a development officer for the business school. So this has been, I think, eye-opening and really successful for a lot of orgs to share their mission and brand and story way further out than a footprint. As much as I love the fact that Gale can hold 1,000 people in the Armory, because I've done it a bunch of times, what if you want 1,200 people in the Armory and you can't do it? So we now have a platform to have a digital element forever. I think this isn't going away, which is something that I think we'll all want to talk about, because it does change the format a little bit of what you have to do for production. But I think the fact that you can reach anyone now, and no one, it's not foreign to them. It was really foreign a year ago to ask someone to log in and watch a gala. It just didn't exist really. Now it's, why are we not doing it? This is a good one too, which will also pertain to hybrid, but how do you keep the same energy? Because it's just one person, if not two. So one of the first questions we get, especially from a committee situation, is who should MC? We normally have this person, would they be great? And I say, you find the two things: the most charismatic person you know, who can drive an audience from home, and you find someone who really knows the reason you're having the event or the mission of the not-for-profit, because they're the only ones they're going to be able to really share the story outside of your digital content. If you have the ability to bring in an auction and you bring in an auctioneer, highly recommend two humans talking at once, because just having a banter helps a significant amount. And I would say you can't recreate the energy of a fundraiser. If we just stop for that for a second, it's impossible to do it digitally. So we do it with content. So if we've got a fund to need or a fund to cure or a live auction element, we will actually time out your 2 minute, minute and a half to 2 minute videos in between your bidding opportunities, so that we're behind the scenes locked into Greater Giving or One Cause or Qtego or wherever you are, finding out who's giving dollars, putting it into the teleprompter. So when the 2 minutes are up and your speaker starts talking, oh my gosh, the Smith family just gave $250. Thank you so much. So at home, they feel like you're actually paying attention. And two, you're actually giving them time to do it. Because as much as we think it's fast, it's not fast at home. There's forget people. We have had a couple of clients recently come to us who skipped the cycle because they just couldn't turn it around fast enough in 2020. And now they have an audience who's never experienced a gala ever. and their demographic is 60 to 75-year-olds who need an iPad and an iPhone and a computer and a this and their credit card, and it's a lot. We know it's a lot. So the time is helpful to give, and it doesn't feel like it's dead air because they're actually watching content. And if you've got, I would say, heartstrings content, that's the time to put it out there. It's as if you would have a fund to cure or a fund to need speaker live. That's what that content replaces for you, which gives people a reason to want to push all of the many buttons they have to push at home. Now, does anyone have questions about virtual events before we go to the really interesting, slightly confusing new stuff that's about to happen to us in the next 6 months called a hybrid event?
You guys can also raise your hand if that's easier to ask live. Definitely open to that and welcome that. There should be the raise a hand feature located at the bottom of your ribbon.
I love a raise a hand feature. Are you seeing things? Am I going to keep going?
Yep, you're good.
Sweet, great. So hybrid events. It's a thing. It's like a skippy stone. We went from like, what the hell are we doing with our arms? Excuse my language. To now we figured out how to be digital. Now this year it's how do we be digital but better. And now it's in the next 6 months for the rest of this year for sure. We want some people in the room because now the numbers are safer and people are getting vaccinated. How do we do that? Totally possible. A lot of things to think about. Starting with the biggest challenge. Who is your audience? Who is our audience when you're doing a hybrid gig? The people in the room or the people at home? And you have to choose that based on what you say, when you say it, how you say it, if you're the speaker at the event. You have to think about how it looks, because what we just talked about with virtual events is we light you in a little backdrop, right? Just like this little box. All of a sudden, if you don't look at me at home and because you're talking to 50 people around me, I don't know that they're there because I can't see them. So all of a sudden your live production gets overlapped with your virtual production because the people in the audience also have to be seen and enjoy their show. So it gets a little bit wider. There's ways to get around this. I think it's just a little bit of pre-planning. And again, because we have our hands in all the different pots when we work with clients, this is sort of our client management side and coordination side, that we spend a lot of time hand-holding people who need help with speech writing and orders of things and when things should happen. And this is the question that we get, which is scripts. You can have two audiences as long as you know in advance that you have two audiences. So if you're going to write out a script because you have a teleprompter, and a teleprompter is really great for scripts and it's also great for bullet points. I would say my best advice is to script out as closely as you can, because the more you practice that and as you're reading it, it's much more organic. Your body has the ability to get nervous, shockingly, at a live event with a bullet point and go off script. And it's really hard for the teleprompter operator to know what you're doing. So the closer you can stay straight to script, the better. But you can now say to your audience, okay, folks, I've been talking to you for the past 15 minutes. We're all going to now talk to the people at home. And bam, you look at the camera and the script is now specifically talking to those people at home. Pre-planning tip on that is talk to your sponsors about it. Talk to anyone making content as a video and have them say those words. This video or this information is for both you in the audience right now and that you are at home, so that you're taking care of both people at the same time. Animation. How does it differ? You have to think about, one, cameras in a live event didn't exist really unless you did something called iMag, where you wanted to see the people in the room on screens while they're at home in the audience. Then we went to virtual, which was one or more cameras getting people to see me. And now this is audience plus a camera. Lighting, you want to think about, are you lighting the room? Which the answer would be yes, because you have people in the room. Or are you lighting it for yourself for television production? Because it is, if anyone's produced virtual events this last year, it's bright. It's way brighter than a live event. It's like blindingly light. I don't know how newscasters do it every day. It's bright. So that would change. You have sound in the room now and out of the room. You didn't need to have live sound in there because you weren't letting anyone hear it. And you also have noise. The biggest thing I would say outside of production is you have to think about your timeline. Having people eat dinner, and I'm just saying this to Gail because Gail's in one of my little squares. But I don't know how many times you get asked, like, how can we have the servers not touch anything while this is happening, or the clearing doesn't happen during? If you think it's loud live, wait till you hear on a microphone at home 400 plates and cups being moved. So you have to think through your schedule significantly with timing of that. So if you're going to have people in the audience, A lot of time for hybrid, they cocktail hour first. They do not eat anything during. It's like a Oscar show. We're watching the performance of it happening, which has been really successful so far. And I say that because we've done 2 so far. We have a bunch booked for Q3. But that spike in the fall winter. We had a lot of clients who really wanted to push for early spring hybrid, and then we had to all back up again. But we're just really used to this. This has just been, it's just that's what we're used to. Who's getting invited is a really good question. Again, there's no skin in the game for us to tell you who should come. We've seen a lot of people invite their top sponsors to this or their top stakeholders. So if it might be a committee or a gala group or sponsors who've been supporting you for a long time, who you can actually say, don't make any noise. Also be super quiet so that you can have a little bit of a conversation with them, or it's you get the behind the scenes look. This is so exciting for you. You should come in early. You can see how the magic is made. You can see where the cameras are and practice and whatnot. But it's a really good opportunity for sponsors. You can actually have them pay more money to get to be in the room. So it's that's what we've been seeing a lot of. Also, this is twofold. One, how do you take care of them? So we talked about scripting. The biggest challenge we've found so far with hybrid for a not-for-profit event is how do you get people to donate in the room and at home simultaneously? Because the people in the room are used to paddling up, right? Oh, my pencil went away. They're used to paddling up, and the people at home are used to pushing a button to donate on a one cause or a greater giving, and you have to use the same format. So the virtual audience, if it's a fundraiser and it's important for them to participate, take care of their technology first, I would suggest. The for how long question is, why would you ever not want to have a virtual element to a live event ever again? If there's a really good reason you can tell me that I've missed, and I am not perfect at any means, that I have missed or that we have been hearing across the country, that why wouldn't you just want a bigger mission and a bigger audience and a bigger opportunity? Always. It increases your budget a little bit, to be totally honest, because you might need to have a camera that you didn't have in there before, and you're going to need to have a teleprompter and a teleprompter operator and that type of stuff. But man, I think the opportunity for that many more audience members versus getting rid of it flat is great. And then also think about, I love a person who likes to split a budget between marketing and their event budget, because if you take an hour's worth of content and we archivally record it for you, and you can take that content and spit it out throughout the 12 months after your event and share all that, that is many more opportunities for you. And then all of a sudden you can say, well, I have a little extra money kit I found over here, and you can use it. So then all the extras, because the reality is no one budgeted for this stuff. There was no such thing as a virtual line item in a budget. And for those few people who skipped last year, they're really in a pickle, because now they're like, what is this thing cost? And I can understand that people think it's less expensive than a live production, but a lot of times it's more if you're talking AV to AV, because it requires more people and there's more technology. And again, I'm not going to get in the weeds of tech because I can't, but it does take more bodies to run as opposed to two projectors and a couple microphones in the room. It's definitely different than that. That is what I've got, girl. I'm gonna those are almost all the questions that I've been asked over time. I was like, who's going to want to ask if we're forecasting when this stuff's coming back? Look, Corinne's already saying yes. So we have a bunch of our corporate clients who are not allowed to fly until April, May, or June of this year, are planning November and October in-person events, minus whatever always happens every other day with us in the news and everything changes. I think Q4, if you have holiday parties to plan, Gail, I'm sure they're calling you already, and they better if they're not. That is going to be like roaring 20s times 1,000%, because I think enough people will be vaccinated, and especially with bigger venues where they can still feel like there's some social distancing happening and there's some safety precautions, we're never going to lose all that. I think we're always going to have someone ask us to have branded masks at the front of the building and have sanitizer. It's not a bad idea for our hands to be clean all the time. I don't know how we've all survived this many years in events, hugging every single person and being all together. None of us have ever gotten majorly sick before. So I think some of that stuff is another silver lining. It will always stay. We've seen a decent amount of our clients change formats. We have a client who does a fashion show twice a year with us. We just did it digitally, which is a fun situation. We're going to be doing it live in November, and they don't want to do a traditional runway again because it requires the audience sit close together, staring at one model at a time. So instead, we're coming up with this vignette idea where there might be a standing model and a product sort of display, and people walk to them. There's a couple tables there to cocktail and eat around. Somebody from the organization will say what they need to say about it, and then they'll move on to the next place. So movement we've seen has been really important as of late. A lot of the questions we've gotten in initial meetings: how do we keep our guests moving? Is the format of a regular sit-down gala really going to stay forever? I can't answer that question. I love a gala because it lets me do lots of flowers and linens and fancy chairs and napkin folds. I don't know that it's going to be the only. I think it used to be the only thing we saw. Now I think you're seeing more lounge furniture making groups, more cocktail tables making groups. If we can find venues with outdoor capabilities, the more you can find outdoor, the better. But yeah, it's we also have virtual events booked in November. And a lot of that's because you have to make your decisions way in advance for organizations, and they have to make the call. And I totally understand being safer in earlier, but we're seeing them. Our phone went from just the cricket town like everybody else's phones. But in the last 3 to 4 weeks, it's been pretty incredible to see how many people, even if it's not I have a gig, Kate, can we talk about it? It's like, can we just talk about an event, period? Because we haven't talked about it in 12 months. So that would be my forecasting. I foresee 22 being pretty jam-packed. Unless you do events in Florida, which a lot of our vendors do, and they're busy all the time because Florida just thinks that everything's cool. So they're always down there. We have a planner that we work with in Exeter, and she's there all the time because they've opened up their state quicker, and it's great. So it just depends on if you feel comfortable and you want to deal with that. I guess I have another thing to say. Can I keep saying something?
Yeah, go for it.
One more event related thing. Something that came up probably 4 months ago, 5 months ago, is testing for COVID at events. And I think initially it was a really great idea because we didn't really have an expectation as to when the vaccinations were going to come out. And now that they're coming out faster than anticipated, it's a thing you can do. It's incredibly expensive to invest in. If you think you don't have a line item for a virtual event, it's your whole event budget for what we spend in New Hampshire for event testing. And we are seeing a lot of people doing temperature checks instead and sending out a questionnaire with registrations to things so that they can sort of self-analyze that. I haven't heard a ton as of yet because it's just become a thing again of, are you going to ask? You can't ask your guests to get vaccinated, but you might have it in the questionnaire, are you vaccinated? So you can get a sense of percentages of who's there. It's a super HIPAA delicate thing. So you can't ask a lot of questions or force them. You can ask, but they don't have to answer. So yes, the testing thing is what I wanted to mention, Corinne. It was like a blip on the radar because I think we were just so desperate to get back together. I think it's organically happening. That it's not going to be as big of a thing, but I fully support always having a sanitization station, more than one forever, having masks available for people if they want them, and then maybe that questionnaire and or temperature checks, which just makes you think about pre-planning a bit. Do you have volunteers who can help do that? Are they willing to take temperatures? What do you need for that? Do you need a staff of a production to do that? Get volunteers. It's just going to save you money anyway to do those types of things, but it gives you the peace of mind that you need because you're the one taking the risk on of opening the doors, which we all want you to. Boy, do we all want you to open your doors because we have so many pretty things to make for you. We've all in this entire country been wanting nothing but to make fun things happen for the past, in life. We've had a lot of fun with digital, and I know a lot of businesses have been really successful with virtual production. There's just something to say about being able to hug people and shake people's hands, and we all feel it. So it's getting exciting. Q3 is more exciting than I thought it was going to be. Q4 is going to be off to the races. So with that, Corinne, run all the questions if you have them. And or you, what questions do you have?
Yeah. Oh, I have many questions, but I'll moderate from the chat for now. Good question about corporate events and the perspective there. Do you see hybrid staying around after this year for New Hampshire specific based events when you expect that only people from New Hampshire would be attending? And what might a strategy be there for incorporating
corporate
virtual?
Specifically? Yeah, so corporate's a lot easier to handle hybrid than not-for-profit for sure because of the fundraising element. If you take that off the table, I think a lot of people are discovering that they can charge a lower ticket price to participate virtually. So again, you can increase your audience for corporate events. It depends on, this is the fun part, that you want 200 people to come to your event, but because of the last 2 years now, like 46 people come, and you're usually the other way where people are actually adding onto your list instead of subtracting. So I would say if you were interested in doing hybrid events permanently, I would do a lot of research and development with the people that normally attend. Definitely make up a survey, call your major sponsors and say, do you want to be here Because we've found, as much as I want live corporate conferences to come back, a lot of our clients have found major success virtually. Doesn't cost them nearly as much money. Sorry, Gail, there's no food and beverage department. There's no flower department. I get in trouble too because we don't have any fun, but some people have found it to be more effective than others. I hear the same in the other direction. Oh my goodness, we have to get back together because our staff hasn't been able to see each other and we're using that as, for that advantage. I don't think there's anything wrong with always having a hybrid option. Whether you have 100% conference planning and then archivally record and figure it out with your videography team that in a week's time, the content can be available to people, or if you can do live streaming. I mean, if you have 13 breakout rooms in a general session, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to live stream everything, but you can. Again, that just makes everyone cry with budget, but it's totally doable. And then your guests can log in at the exact same schedule that you have for your clients and enjoy it. I think it's a great idea. I think anytime you can extend your hand out, and now that it's not scary to do that, I think it's great.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up question. As far as Facebook Live goes, I feel like there's no real risk there in always having a Facebook live stream of an in-person event.
Oh, there is.
Okay,
The
perfect.
best part about Facebook Live and YouTube is that everyone's been home for a year. So all the copyright people in the world have been doing nothing but spending every single day of their lives and while they're sleeping, listening for songs and content that's not copyrighted, which none of us would ever do that. However, in a private closed door event, if you want to show a YouTube video and it's not out, you could do that. You could have songs on a playlist, which is the bigger issue for music, that you have because nobody else is seeing it. It's just the 200 people that are in your room. Now, if it's on Facebook, they close it down while it's happening. It's the best worst. They're doing their job, but you have to rethink it all. So if you're gonna do a Facebook Live constant or YouTube, you need to have everything copyrighted. And we just had an org that had to ask when they got permission for every single video they wanted. They reached out via YouTube and there were some really huge videos and some small videos and everyone was like, oh, it's not for profit? Absolutely, have at it. Give them a little credit, done. But you want to make sure you pre-plan everything that you don't own before you put it out there, for sure.
That is a
Otherwise,
really
that's
good
a great
tip.
idea, Corinne.
Okay, good. Awesome. Well, yes, definitely learning a lot here. Another really good question, and this kind of goes back to sponsorship, Kate. Do you find it reasonable for sponsorships to charge more or less for virtual events? What have you been seeing in the field?
So this cycle now is a lot of second time arounds. The first time arounds, they obviously didn't touch anything. And there was a lot of fear because we didn't have enough time. Orgs didn't have enough time to plan out how the sponsors would benefit from digital content. Because I don't think in a traditional live event, you're necessarily asking them to make a video and edit it and send it to you. You're just having them come on the stage and say something. So now I think equal for sure. If you really have, I would say, if you've got the ability within your organization or through a person sponsoring videography to have really well produced videos, you sure can charge more for sponsorship because they can then use this outside of it and they can have access and you share. You can have access to this content that we're creating for you. You sort of make that agreement beforehand, but they can be a live person if they want to come in. We do a lot with Zoom for our virtual events because everyone knows it, which is another thing. Like there's so many cool technical platforms, but like do what everybody knows. It's a lot simpler for people to understand. It's not about me, it's about your guests at home and you want them not to be confused and push too many buttons. But they can come on and say something. They can give you a logo, which they always do. They can put their commercial on, they can make a video. Like there's a lot of things that they can do. And go 2 weeks before your gig. You need people to come to your event and you're going to probably send out printed invites, although a lot of people aren't even doing that now. Use your social media channels to the T. Have them have a social media takeover for the day. Give them that exposure. Thank them every week. Say something specific about what they're doing. You've got a lot of ways, I think. I think you keep it same price or you can increase it because there's a lot of opportunity there.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we've seen it go kind of both ways. Some of our sponsors are more eager to be in person and value that recognition a little bit more than the virtual, and then vice versa. So yeah, it's hard not to always have a clear and fast answer at this point, but that's kind of where we are in the events world.
It's interesting, Corinne, because I bet you because of this year virtually and the last 2 years virtually, your expectation level for sponsorships when you're live is going to change, because it used to be program, logos, and a verbal thank you, end. So I think they're going to now want to raise the game as to what you're providing, which is going to affect your timeline, affect your audience list, affect where they're sitting. So just, again, things to think about as we transition, because we will transition back.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it's good. I think it's all raised. It's not like we got tired doing the same thing, but we kind of, the show party is the same. The dance party is the same. You come in, you have an hour and a half of cocktail hour, you sit down, you say thanks, you eat dinner for 12 minutes, and I never give Gail team enough time to cook and serve. And then you go into a program that's probably too long, and then you dance, everybody goes home. That's going to change, because we've been able to focus more this past year, because you've got more eyeballs paying attention to one thing at a time. So I think it's going to require organizations to elevate their sponsorship opportunities for live.
In what way do you see programming changing for live events in the future? So, you mentioned the kind of the typical flow, and we're using the Armory at this point as an example.
I know, sorry. I'm like, I love it. I know.
But I think we've all been to an event at the Armory, right. So we can picture it. Yeah. In what capacity do you see that flow changing, and how would you change it?
So we've got timeline flow, and thank God for that. Timeline flow and physical flow. Physical flow, I think, is going to be the biggest change. Where, again, you might not have we always divide the Armory. We do the cocktail hour in the front, we open the drapes, and we go in the sitting area. It might not be that. It might be stations become the thing, and buffets become the thing, because we don't want everyone just sitting and holding. But then my poor executive directors of not-for-profits are like, but the mission can't be spoken about if everyone's walking around and not paying attention on a stage. I'm like, I know, it's terrible, right? It's like everyone's trying to make everybody happy right now. It's not an easy solution for events. But if you have a timeline that allows this flow, and then you set up the time to pay attention, which people are now used to only 50 minutes of paying attention. So all of a sudden, you're already having people get everything they need to get done in a much shorter time than you used to have to get them done. And because the time span is smaller, I hope there's no bands on here, band representation, because I love a band or a DJ, love them. But a lot of times people invest in that at the end of their show and nobody stays, and then they go home. People are going to be more likely to go, give me the information. They're going to be fine with a Tuesday night instead of a Saturday night, because they've been doing Tuesday night galas for the past year on Zoom, shorter amount of time, earlier in the day. It's all of that stuff's gonna be affected for live, because our lives have now sort of opened up. People have time to do other things besides just work, kids, and occasional events to go to. I've become a figure skater in the last 4 months. So everyone, because of COVID, has found things. So I think we have to be aware of what outside of event world needs are going to be for guests. And then programmatic, make it so that we've even had a couple people talk about mini stages. So there's actually an ask given during cocktail hour on a small stage. And then there's the big ask given on a slightly larger stage for the dinner portion, so that we don't require, and it's an ongoing, right? So this person asks every 45 minutes the same thing. It's a new group of people. It's not like a scavenger hunt in the Armory, although that could be fun, but you move around, because it's that 10-minute rule of COVID anyway. People are always aware of that now. What can we get done? What can we accomplish? Then we go eat food while we wait 10 minutes. Then we go to the next spot. So I think there's going to be a lot of movement's going to be key, I think, for live. For sure.
Awesome.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, more quick changes of scenery. Absolutely. And definitely feel you on being cognizant of folks' time. Because I think that's definitely changed through COVID, is, our respective audiences have developed hobbies that they might not have had pre-COVID, and have come to really value their free time, where, pre-COVID, and I keep saying this, but I mean, this is where we're at, but pre-COVID, you could have attended an event every single night downtown.
A lot of people do in Manchester. Yeah. Gail wishes that was happening. Sorry, Gail. She would love it. Every single day, twice daily. She'd love it.
Well, there may be, we might get back to that point, but in what way are we going to be more respectful of people's time? And yeah, I don't think there are any bans on the call, so you're safe.
I might have said that before COVID. It's just it's a hard ask for a not-for-profit to invest in that. If everyone's dancing, great. But if not, that's a hard ask.
Another interesting question from the chat, and thank you guys so much for dropping in these great questions. Wondering the top 2 fails or worst practices for hybrid events that you have seen or researched and want all of us to avoid.
Well, that happened live. We did it. We did it, and then we figured out hybrid happened really fast. People were so sick and exhausted of Zoom calls. They were like, we have to be able to get some people together. And the discovery is what I said, which is clanging plates and people talking and people hanging out together. So the biggest fail was doing it too soon in the season, because people also got together for the first time in 6 months and they were so ready to get together. Everybody was drinking and everyone was having a blast and it was a good time. They might have consumed more than they normally would just from the celebratory nature. And as event professionals, but also as either corporate conference planners or meeting planners or executive directors, it's your job to make sure everyone's staying safe. So I would say, having an environment that really was strict with shush, the show's on, because we were like, we can hear you. Can you tell them to be quiet? And then separating out, if you're going to do hybrid, really get food and beverage outside of the space, timing wise, so that they're not having 2 or 3 cocktails and then sitting down. It's really hard to ask an adult who just had 3 vodka sodas to be quiet. It's just not, it's might as well have 5-year-olds in the room. It's not the same. So thinking that through. And sometimes we found the reverse has been really effective. Sit down right into the show, celebrate the show afterwards with food and beverage so that you don't have to worry about it. That would probably be my biggest one.
All right, awesome. Again, another great question. Is it, and this is going back to hybrid, but also the best strategies to avoid those worst scenarios and fails. Is it cheaper and or easier to record the live event and put out the content later for those who want to join virtually, instead of trying to go live with people in person and virtual at the same time?
Yes. So a hybrid event is going to make you spend money on live elements that you don't need, like food, alcohol, room rental, linens, for us, linens, flowers, outside ambient general lighting, much larger screens and projectors so people who are in the room can actually see it. And in addition, have the stage lit enough to have it seen at home, and then have all of the people who need to run that event sitting at computers at home. So if you have the choice between a hybrid and just a virtual, or hybrid and or just live, the hybrid's going to be the most expensive one, because you're getting every single thing you ever wanted, plus you're adding on the new element. At least with a virtual event, you're taking away all of that food, beverage, linen, floral, registration table setup, all the fun lounge thing that's not there. And you can just do with virtual, just do camera. And you asked about pre-recording. We have had, well, the least expensive option is for you to do all the pre-recording yourself, which a lot of people do because they don't have it in their budget. Again, it didn't exist before. They send us all the videos. We transition them. So we do some editing. We do overlays with logos and names so people know who's talking. And then we put it into a show and push a button. That's the least expensive option for you to have. The virtual live portion, we still have to do that if you send us some videos. And then we need to have somebody in a show somewhere. So there's a production studio that you come to for us. And there's costs with that. There's camera operators, there's teleprompter operators, there's somebody dealing with Firecast, there's a lot of things. And then the other option is, if you want to go in between that, is I want a pre-recorded show, but I want it to look really good, is a lot of people are now hiring a separate recording day for professional company. Either you go to them or they come to you. We did a really great recording day for Strawberry Bank down in Portsmouth. And we went to, they have these, I've actually as a child has never been to Strawberry Bank, but my son is 12 and he loves it. There are these unbelievable historical homes. So we found a bunch of them and found these nooks and crannies to record in, to give people the essence of Strawberry Bank. Because when they normally do their annual gala, they get to roam around the property. So we were trying to figure out a way to make them feel more authentic, but you could never do that live. So we went there, recorded it, edited those videos, and then put them in order and pushed the button. So there's like 5 steps. And I'm just thinking this now, if it's helpful for anyone, if anyone says yes to you while you're saying this, Corinne, I'll do it. We can kind of map out like least expensive option in general versus as you go up, in case it's helpful for people, because I just spit out a bunch of information. And when I get excited about events, because we're talking about events again, I talk very fast. I talk about fast anyway, but I get very excited. So you can also tell me to slow down, and I'll happily slow down.
Yeah, I think that would be great as a follow-up. And I will be also connecting everybody to you, Kate. So if you do have any follow-up questions for Kate and her team, please feel free to do so. Okay, another hybrid question, and this one is really pertinent and timely. So several local venues struggle with the infrastructure to support hybrid events. One in particular struggled to meet the internet speed requirements to live stream. Any recommendations on how to push this envelope? Obviously, there is a business reason they should, but several venues do not want to make that investment or have struggled so much in the past year that they don't have the funds to invest. So, there's a little bit of catch up happening. Any recommendations on that?
If you don't have internet, you can't have a show. It's a really good thing to say, and it's really basic, but it's real. And if you don't have fast internet, your show can look really wonky, and it's not great. So you are totally correct to ask the question. I'm surprised at this actually, because the number of venues in this state that have to deal with the First in the Nation primary, where they have to bring in so much internet for so long, that I think it would be a pre-planning conversation that might make things easier. If we work with a client, the very first thing we ask for is the venue contact when we're dealing with digital events, to find out who's got not internet. I want Ethernet access. I want a hard line into our system. So that's the first question. Ask if they have Ethernet, like a direct ability for Ethernet. Working with a production company also saves this. I'm not doing that for Malloy events, but because we're tech people and all we do is live in this and all of our equipment requires it, it's a really easy conversation for us to have. And sometimes it's just a language barrier where their team, and especially with events, I would not expect an event manager to understand any of it. I don't understand any of it. I'm sending you to Rachel, our chief of technical design. She's going to talk to the person who deals with facilities at your venue to figure out how to get that answer. But internet is completely correct. I would imagine if you plan it out in advance, you can make that happen. And if it comes down to it in the venue you want, before you sign the contract, to make sure they have the right speeds that you need. We can send that out to what speeds are good for this stuff too, Corinne. I'm saying that because I can't actually answer the question, but I know it's a real number. And if I text Rachel while I'm talking to you, she'd tell me, but I'm not going to lie because I don't know it. It's an up and down situation. That's as much as I know. Don't use that venue. I hate to say that, but if you are really going to do a hybrid, you will ruin your experience if your internet isn't fast enough. There's no other way to do it. So have the conversation in advance, talk to the right person at the venue. Don't expect it's not on their shoulders to know all the extra tech stuff, because none of us had to know it a year ago, so they don't have to know it either. And if they don't still have it, reconsider the venue.
Awesome. All right, this is a question from me actually. What has your team learned from this whole COVID experience, and how has that translated into your current work and what you expect to be creating in the future?
Wow, I wish you told me this question in advance so I could really prep for it. I would say the things we learned is you have to be so brand centric with the stuff that you produce, because we were stripped of every single access point to brand. I will color match your linen and color match your chair cushion till the cows come home. You take all that stuff away from me, all we have is what's on the screen. So all of a sudden your digital content, your overlays, your transitions, your intro slides, all of that changed and got really, really elevated, because it was the only way for us to express our client brand, which then became a real trust shift for clients and the relationship we have with them, because normally we can do that for them, and now we have to do it in a little small spot within an hour. So we started branching out into places that we hadn't before, talking about sponsorship PDFs that they were sending out, making sure those were brand heavy or thematic to the event. What their social media teams were doing, we took over someone's social media very beginning of last year. They had no team. Everybody lost 40 to 50% of their employees all on the same day across the country, but they still had to produce this gala. So we were able to step in and help them. So we became more partner based with our clients than we have ever before, which I think will stay. That's like one of the biggest things we learned. And then you also asked about like how it's going to shift. I think the game is going to have to be so elevated now. As much as I think it's so cool that we do hand walls with champagne and things at the Armory. I'm sorry, but that's where we did it. I love it, but I don't ever want to do it again. I want to raise the bar, because it's been so darn long since we've seen anything. Not that it's not fun. I love a digital event. I've been loving them for a year, but it's not as tactile as a live event. So I think it's going to require everybody to lift their game. Even if you don't have a budget to bring in a production team, you internally can figure out how to make things more elevated for your guest experience, because that's going to be key. Yeah. Does that help? Awesome. You asked a long question. Did I answer it all?
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I know that your team focus pretty heavily on your core values as Malloy Events, and during COVID, within that time that you had to really focus in on what really matters. So that's why I brought that question up,
Yeah,
because I
I mean,
think
that's
that was
actually
very powerful.
that's a good one. So that's the only piece that I missed that piece. So we finished the First Nation primary and like basically slept for a week, the end of February, and grew our business from like 6 full-time employees to 30 in 8 months. And then I went on February vacation with my son to Florida, and we probably all saw COVID and we didn't realize it. And then we came back and everything went away and everything was gone. And we didn't know what to do with our hands or our brains. And for the first 3 or 4 months, I mean, we called everybody, every client, every vendor across the country just to see how people were doing. And everyone was just so shocked that there wasn't really any momentum or movement. So we sort of said, what on earth can we work on for housekeeping? My chief of staff's here, and she's going to be so proud of me for sharing this. This is her favorite thing that we do. Emily is an amazing person, and she never goes on event side. She does like all the internal things in our business. So she misses when I'm like, we were up till 2 a.m. building this stage. It's not the same. So this is the stuff that she always wants us to do. And we just never had time to do it. We never stopped. We had our growth pattern was to go to 40 employees this year. We were going to build headquarters this year. Like the plans that we had for 2020 were so that we said we can breathe. What's important? How's our staff doing? How are our standing meetings going? How often do we do all staff meetings? Because the excuse is we've got a gig this weekend, we're skipping the meeting, and we stopped doing that. We meet, it's called a Thrive, every single Friday. We ask, the first question is, what's a tiny win for everyone that they did for the week? Almost always related to me skating for me. And what shout out do you have for a team member? And it could be, you might not have one for the day, you might have 7. And we really have become, and we're small. We went from 30 to 9, and we're all on reduced hours like everybody else is still. And hopefully by the end of this year, we can increase that. We just brought on our first AV tech, which is really exciting, who's starting this week. That entire team had to get from, the biggest struggle was production because there was nothing to do. All our truck drivers, all that had to go. And so now we say, this is our core. We're less people. Maybe we don't want to do 500 gigs a year, except for once at primary, because we just do. It's something we're very specialized in. But our regular day to day, because of the relationships we form with our clients because of COVID, through how about sponsorships or how about social media, things they've never asked us before. Now we want to continue that conversation and say, how can we fully immerse your experience and your clients or your org in your brands? How can we help show that the best? And that requires more time and less clients, honestly. So we shifted in terms of our internal, what's most important to our team. It's a family. You spend some crazy hours and crazy, all of us know that. It's nuts what we do. We're a little crazy to be in events, and it's okay. But it requires that everyone sort of handholds every once in a while, and we weren't giving people that opportunity, and now we do. And then with our clients, we approach it very differently because we're brand ambassadors. We have to take care of them very carefully. And a small business that grows really fast has major growing pains, and is exactly what happened to us. And as much as I hate that COVID happened, I can always be grateful for the fact that it allowed us to reassess how we do and what we do and when we do it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, it was so great to see that get built out and pushed out through your social. So yeah, love your team and glad that you guys are rebounding.
And we have to do events with you again, Corinne. Corinne has the craziest brain, guys. Anyone who's worked with her outside of, and you came into this job and then COVID hit, so it wasn't fair. But the stuff she would come up with, she would send me these insane mood boards to do when we worked together. And I was like, how do you have she's so creative. It's so fun to work with you. I cannot wait for you to stretch your legs for real. I cannot wait.
Feeling is so mutual, Kate.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
Another great question in the chat. In some economic recessions, a percentage of events go away and take years to come back. Not that you're an economic expert, though you may be. You're a figure skater for all I know. So, but do you think once vaccines are fully in the arms of people that will be attending, that most will come back and that there will be less of a long-term impact?
I think the impact will be some of the live events will become virtual and stay virtual. I don't think they will get eradicated in what we do. I think that the more, that is right, the more vaccines are in arms, the more comfortable people will be. I think the problem with events is it takes so long to plan and so much budget to put out there that this back and forth of something changed and there's a variant and this is what's taking everybody so long to feel comfortable to finally step out and be confident making their decisions. But I don't see the long-term impact being anything but actually positive. So either you are successful doing a digital event instead of an in-person event and you continue it and expand it, and then your live events add digital to it to help more people see it. I don't see, I'm not an economic expert. I'm an opera singer by degree, so definitely I can count to 12, but that's not me. But I can, from what we've heard from our clients, is that they are willfully wishing for the day that they can gather again, whether to pep up the sales team or to get their customers to really understand what they're selling and what their products are. So I don't think that'll ever be gone. I think it's just going to be different in a good way. You're going to have more audience and more mission to share.
Awesome. Well, we're just about at time. So if anybody has any closing questions for Kate, now's the time.
Yeah. Otherwise, send me you can email me everything. I'm happy to answer anything offline.
The event will also be up on YouTube. So if you need to send this to your team or revisit, I'll be sending out the link once it's all uploaded. But thank you again for coming on and spending your lunch hour with us. And
Yes,
thank you,
thank
Kate,
you
for
so much.
sharing all
Please.
your wisdom. And I hope to see you all in person at some point. Hopefully at an event.
Soon, right? And I should say this, Corinne, if anyone has questions about anything, whether you want to hire us or not, just reach out to us. We have great client managers, or myself or anyone on the team is more than happy to answer. It's not fun navigating this, and we've navigated it more than you do because we do multiple events in a year. Just ask. We're happy to spend time with you on the phone or a video call. We'd rather everyone have events. My goal is everybody's doing gigs again. So if it means you make a phone call and spend 15 minutes with me and we don't work for you, I don't care. I just want to make sure people are comfortable and confident to move forward, because it's important that when it's safe and able to do it, that we're all back in the game that we're all so good at doing.
Amen. Well, thank you so much, and have a great day, everybody. Great talking
Thanks so much,
to you.
everybody. Bye.